For the dealers come out. Everybody is outside till the killers come out. You ain't eating, you just act full. I'm impactful. Dozen funerals in a month. I got that pull. I will give it to niggas in all rap forms. Ignatius out right now on all platforms.
What is going on, our growing audience? You're in the building for the ClaireMont Show. I'm Lamont.
I'm Claire.
And we're here to entertain you, but more importantly, give you useful information. The motto of our show when we come together, old school meets new school for a completely new school of thought. And we're going to dive on into it. The way we do our show, we set it up with we've had it, a petty grievance before we deep dive into the political issues of the day. And Claire, let's give them a preview of some of the political issues. Claire, you picked something that's been so hot in the news. Tell them what it was.
Well, yeah, so I wanted to go a little bit into the psychology side of MAGA and then also just morality. So it's like a two-parter, but first is just the basic levels of psychological thinking, and how we might be processing something and we're doing it in very different ways. And it explains a lot of the gaps that we see between how people can come to such different conclusions based on the same information. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, how you then apply that to morals, and how a lot of times if you're faulty in your logic, you're also going to be faulty in your morality.
That's going to be good, ladies and gentlemen. And you've always heard me say that MAGA lives in a bubble, and right. You have to talk to them in a way usually kind of like a child. But we'll get there and we'll break that down. Claire's the expert on that. We'll go there in a minute. We've also had a fallout from MAGA with a lot of MAGA people claiming that, damn it, this is the point for them to jump off MAGA.
Yeah.
Not releasing the Epstein files. We've seen people claim, big MAGA folks from Dan Bongino, yes, I did say Dan Bongino, to Pam Bondi, to Charlie Hermie Kirk. And if you don't know who Hermie is, I'll show you from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh, I know who Hermie is.
Oh, okay. to we've had Schultz wearing a tinfoil hat. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll deep dive into all that. But before we do, we've got our segment. Claire, what is it that you've had it with this week? Our homage to the ladies of I've Had It, but we call ours We've Had It.
Right. So I have personally had it with, well, actually I have two today, and I'm choosing up until the buzzer. Let's see. All right, I'm going to go with the first one. So okay. I've had it with people assuming, once they've heard that I am training to be a therapist, that I want to sit and listen to you ramble and talk about things when I barely know you. I don't know why people, I mean, I get it. Like, they're like, oh, this woman like wants to listen to people for 8 hours a day for the rest of her life. Like, you know, she's probably very open and loves having deep conversations. This is true. But when I don't know you and like I've just given you the information that like, yeah, my goal is to be a therapist. And then people go, oh, well, let me tell you about my situation with my brother-in-law. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not on the clock. You're not sending me money. No, I don't know you. And yeah, it's just, I'm not licensed. I barely know what I'm doing. I'm halfway through my grad program, and people, they think that I just sit around and listen to people who I don't know for fun. Like, no, I have time that I use valuably. So I've just kind of had it with that. That's not to say that I don't love listening to people. I don't love hearing new perspectives, but just when people dive into really deep shit, when I barely know them, I'm like, listen, even in therapy, we butter it up a little bit before we get to this point. So, right. Yeah, please just still be respectful of my time and my, I don't know, my current abilities before you assume that I'm going to therapize you for free.
Well, Claire, that's oftentimes the problem professionals have when they come home or get off work. For example, doctors. I don't know why people think that because you're a doctor, you specialize in the entire body, which when you're in med school, yeah, you got to know all that. But then when you've been a doctor for like 15 years and you specialize in the heart, you're not trying to tell somebody what the issues are with the knee. And so oftentimes when people come home from, maybe they come home on vacation or they travel somewhere and they see friends that know they're a doctor, they expect them to be on the clock for free,
Right.
Because of whatever the situation is. And it does make professionals kind of uncomfortable because you don't want to denounce these people, especially if you know them. But in your situation, you don't know them. And so you've always got to find a fine line to just say, come up with some PC answer, like,
I'm
I'm
not comfortable. I'm not comfortable giving unsolicited advice, or I guess it's solicited. I'm not comfortable giving even solicited advice at this point in my journey or whatever. My mom, like you said, so you've got it more with the doctor side, but my mom's a lawyer and her dad was a lawyer. And she talked about how when he died, every single relative who had been hiding like cockroaches under the floorboards all of a sudden came to her because they'd been going to him because, they get a speeding ticket or everybody's got a legal issue at some point. And she was like, I didn't realize that one of the hardest things about my dad dying would be that I was going to become the family lawyer. So it's true, respect your family members and your friends and even strangers' profession for being a profession and not a full-time job 24/7. So
exactly. Now, what's your second one, Claire? But let me say something that you just said that unites everybody when they've always tried to stereotype this is a Black people thing. Guess what you just said? White people have cockroaches too, folks. Floor is yours, Claire.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to go with my second one, but since we're doing it quick, I've had it with sneaky charges and fees.
Oh,
I'm moving and it feels like every single paper that I'm getting, because obviously I'm breaking my lease that I currently have in an apartment, and then I'm signing a new lease in another state. I've never even visited the place. So it's just a lot of like question marks, but I've got to live somewhere. So filling out all this paperwork, dealing with the shit that I'm, letting go of here, all these security deposits, the move itself, there's all these sneaky fees. And do you tip the movers? Do you do this? We need to deep clean the apartment before we go. It's just like every single thing. It's just hard to, like, I'm hoarding my money and I still am like, I don't know if there's going to be just like another random, like, oh, do you have an extra $800, an extra $1,500 to pay for this processing fee or whatever it is. So yeah, I've had it with that shit. I just want to be able to fucking move from one state to the next without having unexpected costs. I'm expecting to pay for the move. I'm expecting to pay to break the lease. I'm expecting all those things. But when you're throwing in an extra charge here and there, it's like going to the hospital, looking at a hospital bill. They charge you $50 for breathing. Come on, guys. Let's cut the sneaky fees. It's not fair.
Oh, Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, when you've heard me talk about finances on my big channel, when I would do it occasionally, this is an area where the Consumer Financial Protection Agency or Bureau would protect consumers against this type of bull job Claire is talking about, from moving fees to people who own property, sneaking fees in there, to bank charges. And guess who came and gutted that? Trump and Doge came and gutted the Consumer Protection Bureau. And yeah, and I've been a victim of getting movers who you think are professional, really aren't. So I would tell you and your sister, I'm sure you've done it already, make sure that these people are licensed and bonded and have a reputation online so that you don't wind up in Denver, TV is broken or missing, and then they tell you it's out of your hands. Because in the state of North Carolina, we got fucked by a guy who had been caught, believe it or not, Claire, 10 times for faking his license to move people, because he's either stolen stuff from folks or he would upcharge people when they get their stuff to the move. He would tell them all this bull job about it costs more gas and fees and all this, and he wasn't going to give them the stuff. And it's such a gray area legally, the police couldn't do anything about it. Can you believe it's your stuff in this moving truck? and the police couldn't do anything about it except for you write up something with the Protection Bureau, take them to small claims court, which most people don't care about because this doesn't put them in jail. And you basically are either out your money or you're going to take the law into your own hands. So, ladies and gentlemen, she has a legitimate gripe, and we need to get the Consumer Protection Bureau back in place. Now, we've had it is not as deep as hers, but damn it, I have had it with you old motherfuckers that take a right turn and will not turn your fucking car. Okay.
Boomers.
There is no reason it should take you 2 minutes to make a right turn when the driveway is completely empty. There's no car leaving.
It's flat.
You've got the whole, you can even get in the other lane if you want to make your right turn. Turn your ass and get into where you're going. It shouldn't even take 30 seconds for you to do that. I've had it. And if you old heads don't want me to start saying we need to start making y'all take a driver's license test when you hit 65, start doing better. This is not Sunday, and we ain't Sunday driving. Am I wrong, Claire?
Not in the slightest. I agree. I just don't think a lot of people are aware. My parents always framed it as offensive versus defensive driving when I was learning, especially because I grew up driving in the DMV.
Right.
That was where I learned, was like 5 miles from DC. So,
Lord,
Maryland drivers, I stand on this hill till I die. Maryland drivers are the worst drivers in the United States of America, and they're going to come after me, and I hope they do. But it's like a whole thing in the DMV because DC, Virginia, and Maryland, we all think that one of the others is the worst drivers. So Virginia thinks it's Maryland, Maryland thinks it's Virginia.
Right.
DC, I think they go back and forth, but yeah, like, especially because I grew up driving around there, my parents were always like, you have to assume that every single person on the road is trying to hit you. And then you won't get in accidents, because if you are assuming that everyone knows what they're doing, like, but that's what I think a lot of people who are turning, they're not realizing that them slowing down means that they are backing up the people behind them. And they're also risking, if that person isn't paying attention or they haven't been given enough time to brake, getting rear-ended. So like they're seeing it as just like, oh, I want to go slow into this turn, or I don't want to mess up the bottom of my car, or whatever they're thinking, but they're not aware of all the other traffic around them. And so it's also just like an awareness issue. Like, just recognize that other people are also driving behind you.
Right. It's consideration, because at the end of the day, if you want to be like a butthole and argue what we're saying, you could easily just say, well, it's your fault if you hit him in the back because the law says that. Yeah, I know that, fuckface. But it doesn't mean that you didn't use some kind of discernment in your consideration to help the process. And secondly, would you want to get hit in the back? Because if you're thinking a payday from getting hit in the back, you could literally get hurt. As Claire just eloquently put it, defensive driving. Well said. Well said.
All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please let us know what it is that you've had it with. Post your links in below. This will be on the ClaireMont channel. It'll be on my channel. And if you want to get a link to everything we do, both podcasts, our IMDb's, all that, beacons.ai/politics of being black. Claire, of these subjects we've got today, which one you want to do first?
Okay, so I was thinking about it, and I feel like it actually would make a lot of sense for me to start with the psychology stuff.
Okay.
And then for it to funnel into the big stuff. Because it kind of like primes it a little bit.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we talked about earlier, we are going to cover Epstein and Trump and Epstein's pedophilia, that type of thing. But before we get there, we want to talk about the mindset of Trump, the mindset of MAGA, the mindset that detaches people from reality. They create their own reality, and then they create their own religion within that sub-reality, and then they make up another reality where it becomes okay to mess around with people who are underage. And we found a young man who's talking about those issues. I'm going to play the clip, and then we'll let Claire jump into her dissertation, as this is her area of expertise. Take a look at this young man.
What is he trying to get out of you, out of life, out of other children? What does he want?
At the time, he was telling me, like, I can't wait for you to be 18 so we don't have to hide this anymore. so it's not illegal. You know, that's kind of some of the things he would tell me. Pedophiles in general, or a lot of times they're very immature people. And he was, in the sense that he loved video games, he loved pizza and pop, and he was basically like a 12-year-old. He was living like a 12-year-old. Like if you asked a 12-year-old how they would live, that's how they would live, you know. This may have been his case, I don't know. But in some situations, what you'll find is these people like live like children. And when they live like that, it attracts children. And then due to that attraction, they end up becoming sexually attracted to these children. That is a way that it does happen. So sometimes they're not inherently trying to abuse this child, but they end up hanging out with the child so much that they build this relationship with them that eventually becomes loving or sexual, or, you know, however you want to look at it, right?
Wow. So Claire, before I give you the floor, let me give you an example of what he's talking about.
Yeah.
A classic example of this that we never was able to prove, but the evidence was there.
I know who it is.
Jackson.
Bingo.
Michael Jackson, hanging out with monkeys, all that crazy shopping on trinkets, hanging out with children, bringing children to the ranch by himself, and you're a grown-ass man? No. And then in my personal community, the exact type of person he was talking about in the games, like get in the basement, put his headphones on, his gaming all night long. And this is not a knock or a bash on the gaming industry, because I paid my way through college and won a Mustang being good on video games when I was in my younger days. But I didn't associate myself with other childlike things. I wasn't hanging around children. I was an adult doing those things. But you do have adults that when they get off their real job, is video games just destroying their minds. They're doing things to kind of make them escape life, which is either overeating or doing drugs. And then they turn right on the internet and start looking at porn. And then somehow or another, next thing you know, you're looking at kiddie porn. And I'm giving you guys a real life example of someone who did this and lost their marriage. This is a real life example. I know the two people. I still see the two people in the community here and there. And the person, the male in that relationship, did get charged with kiddie porn at one point in time. But I'm hearing he's turned his life around since then. Having said that, Claire, to give you this alley-oop, I'm Kobe today, you Shaq, slam dunk it.
All right. Wow. So, all right. First, speaking to that video. So I think pedophilia is one of those things that is understudied because it's so uncomfortable to think about. But what we do have, the information we have gathered suggests that there actually tends to be a range of perspectives within the realm of pedophiles, right? So you do have, he was saying some of them are childlike,
Right.
like the Michael Jackson that we envision. And it's almost like they never had the capacity, like the IQ, the intellectual ability to grow up, or they were traumatized as a child and they never really outgrew a certain stage of their development. But then there's also the ones who are like Epstein. They are the successful lawyer next door. They're the guy who has it all together in the white picket fence. They can also be pedophiles. You also have your run-of-the-mill criminal who is doing it like you just think of, like, we talked about how we went to middle schools where girls were getting pregnant in middle school in 6th, 7th grade. Right. They were always dating some 19-year-old junkie who, for whatever reason, can't attract women his own age because he's such a fucking loser. And then a light bulb clicks in his head that, oh, well, why don't I just go for girls who are illegal or barely legal so that I can then influence them so much and brainwash them, because women my age are already too smart for that. So I think there's a lot of different dynamics going on there, but all
Claire, would you say that there's a component of vulnerability that they see in certain, they see with younger people and they pounce on it, or there's a power dynamic where you're someone like Epstein who has all this power, and a lot of times people want to be next to power, and then you do these, you take advantage of these proclivities with young people?
I think it could be both. Okay. I think really when I think about predators, whether it's predators with children or predators with adults, like, you know, people who are word, they, a lot of times you look at someone like Ted Bundy is a great example. He had a girlfriend at home. He had a stable life. He had access to a woman at any time he wanted. He was in a relationship for most of the time that he was going out and attacking young women. So that tells you that for most people who are like this, who are predatorial, whether it's with children, whether it's with women, whatever it is, it's not about the sex. It's about the power. Because they can usually get sex. They can pay for sex. That's not fun for them. They want to take sex. And I think that's what it comes down to a lot of times with pedophiles. Is children cannot consent, no matter how much you want them to. If you're a freak like that, they can't. So it's literally like the perfect victim, because again, they could, for people who are not doing this with children but are still predators, they could go and they could hire a prostitute and they could do it consensually, right? But they're snatching someone up on the street. Why? Not because of the sex, because of the power. Same thing with children. They know that it's like this, you're in this special club of I've stolen something from someone that they can never get back. It's also relates to a lot of men's obsessions with virginity and the idea of someone being soiled or tainted. And I think there's a lot of pedophiles who also weigh into that, like, oh, it's a 13-year-old and clearly she has no experience, which means I'm the one who's doing it. I'm the one conquering this person almost. It's very much about power, which is what makes it so scary. Because if someone is that obsessed with having power over someone, it means that they don't see that other person as a person. They see them as an object.
Wow.
So pivoting to more textbook stuff. And I apologize if you get lost, but this is grounded in theory. And I want to talk just a little bit about the theory. So this is called Kohlberg's stages of moral development. And he broke it down into 6 stages. So I'm just going to explain them really quickly. And I'm going to give an example for each. And I just want you to imagine, normally in people, we expect if you have a high IQ and you have good access to education, you will hopefully get to like level 4, 5, or 6, right? If you're a child, you're probably not even intellectually capable or cognitively like capable of getting past a certain stage just because your brain hasn't gotten there yet, right?
Right.
So you could relate this to how old you are, but after a certain point, it becomes, have you trained your brain to do that? Have you tried it? And maybe your brain just can't. Maybe you literally are stalled at a certain point in your IQ. Your brain just can't fathom it. So we'll start with level 1 is pre-conventional morality. So this is young children and some adults under stress or with limited development, limited cognitive abilities. They might be in this level. And so stage 1 is obedience and punishment. So this is how right and wrong are based on avoiding punishment. So we're talking about morality, right? Like what do we think is right or wrong? When you're very little, most of it has to do with, I won't hit my brother because I'll get in trouble, right? Not I won't hit my brother because it's bad and it would hurt him. It's usually we are first introduced to morality with rules. So my parents told me I'm not going to hit my brother. And that's because I don't want to be in timeout. Not because I care about my brother, but I don't want to be in timeout. So you're avoiding consequences and you're being obedient because you're avoiding punishment, right? Stage 2 is when you move into self-interest and rewards. So instead of just avoiding punishment, you introduce right and wrong are based on what benefits the individual. So it becomes, I'll help you with your homework if you give me candy. So what's in it for me is this second stage. And again, it happens pretty early. Most kids, by the time they're 4 or 5 years old, have not only understood that if I don't do this, I'm going to get punished, but in addition, if I do it, I might actually get rewarded. So that's the very basic 2 stages. Then you move into conventional morality. So most adolescents and adults can understand morality at this level. So stage 3 is interpersonal relationships, good boy, good girl. So right is what pleases others or gains social approval.
Mhm.
So this becomes, I'm going to be nice to people so that they'll like me. This is entering a whole nother stage because you're now aware of your perception and how others are perceiving you, and you value being a good member of society. Not only are you not committing a crime because it's bad and because you're going to be punished, but also because you don't want your community members to think of you as a criminal.
Gotcha.
So morality then becomes about being seen as a good person. Then we step into stage 4, and that's law and order. So right is following laws, rules, and authority to maintain order. So you shouldn't steal because it's against the law. This kind of feeds into like punishments and all that earlier stuff. But in stage 4, you start to understand that rules are very important. Even if it feels unfair, you kind of accept as a member of society that someone has laid out these rules to protect us. And if I get a ticket for speeding, I probably did something wrong and I should probably pay it and move on, right? Mm-hmm. So by stage 4, most people, most adults and adolescents can get up to stage 4 and understand all of the things that I've already mentioned. Now, here is when it starts to get tricky because not everyone can reach stages 5 and 6. Stage 5, so this next level is post-conventional morality. So stage 5 is called social contract. This is when it gets hard for some MAGAs and for people who are morally corrupt to agree with. Right and wrong at the social contract level are based on justice and individual rights, and laws can be changed for the greater good. So this is where you start to understand that a law can be wrong, like segregation, and you can protest them to make fairer ones, right? So people who haven't accessed this level, they're going to look at people who are protesting something like segregation, and they're going to be like, you're a lawbreaker. You're breaking the law and you're bad. You're a bad person because the law is good and you're breaking it. But someone who has reached this level of moral and cognitive thinking can say, even if this is the law, I know that morally and ethically, this law doesn't actually represent the best interests of the people. So
Claire,
I break the law.
Claire, there's a term for what you just said.
Yeah.
When you get to that new level of thinking, you know what it's called?
Woke.
Being woke. And they're trying to make that bad because they know that that is the way the country originally wanted people to be. And now that they have an advantage of having people dumb, they don't want you to think like that anymore. And Claire, you gave such an eloquent point, and you've heard me say this, that just because something is a law doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
And just because something is not a law doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
And so that's
Slavery
the concept of what
legal.
you're saying.
Slavery was legal. We look at like Anne Frank. No person on earth today is going to argue that what that family did for Anne Frank in hiding her family was illegal and wrong. Right. Because they're able to understand that what was going on legally was wrong. So breaking the law in that instance was morally right. But again, if you're not able to think in that abstract of a way, you're not going to get that. You're just going to stick to what you've been told. You're not going to think outside of the realm of legality. And then we
break this up, Claire. When we break this up, the definition that I'm going to use to get SEO for this is going to be called the real definition of woke, not the corrupted version.
I like that. And then the last stage is called universal ethical principles. So this just builds on the social contract one that we just talked about. Okay. But right and wrong are based on universal moral principles, justice, equality, even if they conflict with international law, whatever it is. And so this one, the example that they do give is hiding Jews from the Nazis was morally right, even if it broke the law. Taking enslaved people on the Underground Railroad was morally right, even if it was breaking the law. And so all of this kind of feeds into the idea of how do people decide what is right and what is wrong? And we all kind of operate in a world where we think, most people probably think the way that I do. Most people get to their conclusion probably in a similar way than I do. But the evidence doesn't really suggest that, because a lot of people don't go through these steps to get to a moral answer in the way that others do. And the more education that you have, the more that you've trained your brain to think outside of the box, to be woke, the more likely that you're going to be able to see past superficial roadblocks that make you choose between the law and what's right. If you are woke in the way that I've described it, you're going to be able to look past that and be like, yeah, okay, so they're saying this is wrong, but I know morally what is right and wrong, and I don't need to listen to some official or some voice of authority in order to understand what is the right thing to do. I'm going to think independently, and then I'm going to come up with my own conclusion. And I'm not sure that a lot of people within the MAGA realm are capable of that. Once they've committed themselves to an idea, whether it's I'm a Christian, whether it's I'm a Trump supporter, whether it's I'm an American, once they've committed to that, it is very hard for them to think outside of the rules and the laws that they believe exist within that group. Mm-hmm. Right. So this goes to when I criticize the United States, and other people on the far right have already decided that as an American, my job is to defend America no matter what. And if we want to be the best country on earth, then I and all of the other Americans have to fully believe that we're the best country on earth. And then someone like me comes along and is like, hey, actually, right now, the way things are going, we're not the best country on earth, and maybe we should fix that. And they're like, you're not a real American. You're not a real American. Because they can't understand that maybe, and because it's too abstract for them, maybe criticizing your country is the way to get it to become the best country it could be. And maybe if you only ever blindly support your country, you might be blindly supporting people who don't have your best interest in mind. But that is too radical and too confusing. So they just go with, you're a terrorist, you hate America, and you don't want the best for all of us. And I'm just like, so this is where black and white thinking comes in as well. If you have set up your world as there are good guys, there are bad guys, there are the elites and the swamp dwellers, and then there's the rest of us, you're not going to be able to understand all the nuance that exists and makes things not binary, not black and white. So all that to say, I think when it comes to this Epstein situation, we're seeing a very interesting transition for MAGA, because they are being faced with a situation, an issue, a conflict, where even if you are at the basic levels of thinking and moral understanding, you know that something's wrong. Because on the one hand, either Trump lied to you, or on the other hand, Trump is on a list and also lied to you. So there is no way for him to get out of this at this point without either admitting, A, we lied about there being a list and we ran on the promise of exposing the list and there never was one, which makes him a liar. Mm-hmm. Or B, okay, yeah, there is a list and I lied to you because I'm actually one of the filthy elites that you all voted for me to get rid of. I'm actually one of them. So they're stuck. And it doesn't take any abstract thinking. It's at the base. A child, you can give them this situation and explain very basically, this is what he said. This is what we're seeing. So one of two things is true. And a child can understand this. And I think that's why so many MAGAs are like, holy shit. There is no way that we can get out of this one. We can't blame anyone else. It was his own words and he incriminated himself. And now any direction he goes, he is going to be a liar or betraying us in some way.
There's a way he can get out of it, Claire, because you talked about it briefly, but we didn't deep dive into it. And we can once we get into the Epstein and why this is causing a conundrum for MAGA. Those same people you talked about, because they don't have a lot of education, they don't have a lot of ability to critically think. Right. And that makes them more susceptible to believing in magic, believing in religion, and believing in the God they create. And the Bible teaches you that if you go to God and declare him your Lord and Savior and repent, that as a man, you can still go to heaven and you're forgiven. Trump can lean into that if he wanted to say I made a mistake and the only person that can judge me is God. And those same people with that low critical thinking, I'm going to start calling it LC, low critical thinking, I forgive him for that. And I want us to deep dive into just how caught up MAGA has got into this Epstein thing that's creating this divide. Can I show you a video of someone in MAGA who got mad at somebody else in MAGA and is threatening to leave the FBI?
Please.
Oh, okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, Dan Bongino is threatening to leave his Secretary of Deputy FBI position because of what has gone on, this explosive issue with the Epstein files and Pam on her bended knee Bondi lying. Take a look at this.
There is major turmoil inside the Justice Department tonight over the handling of files in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Sources tell ABC News there was a fiery confrontation between Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, and that Bongino has told allies he may resign. Here's ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, turmoil at the top levels of the Justice Department. Sources tell ABC News of a fiery confrontation between Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino and Attorney General Pam Bondi over the department's handling of the investigation into sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Sources tell us Bongino did not come to work today and has told allies he may resign. For years, Bongino, a former podcast host, and his boss, FBI Director Kash Patel, stoked conspiracy theories over Epstein's death, insisting shadowy forces within the government engaged in a massive cover-up.
Folks, you're going to see a lot of names on that. The Epstein client list, I believe, based on what I've heard from sources and the story I just told you, basically, is going to rock the political world. There's a reason they're hiding it.
Attorney General Bondi promised to deliver answers.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
But this week, DOJ released a memo saying there's actually no client list at all. Bondi asked to explain.
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
DOJ also said Epstein did in fact die by suicide and that there was no credible evidence found that he blackmailed prominent individuals, and declared it would not be releasing any more information about the case. President Trump on Tuesday tried to change the subject.
Are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
All week long, growing outrage from some of Trump's top supporters who were counting on the release of the Epstein files and are now demanding answers.
Lindsay, tonight the future of the FBI's second in command is uncertain. But today, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche weighing in on the record saying Bongino signed off on DOJ's conclusions on the Epstein files, posting the suggestion by anyone that there was any daylight between the FBI leadership and DOJ leadership on the memo's composition and release is patently false. Lindsay?
Pierre Thomas for us. Thank you.
You hear that load of horse shit, ladies and gentlemen? Let's just break that down real quick, shall we, Claire? Number one, usually someone is lying, and this is not my facts, this is data. When someone vehemently claims it's untrue, when someone starts to deflect to something else, which is what Trump is known for doing, and he just did this shit in this video again. That's number one. Number two, that woman, bended knee Bondi, clearly said what she said earlier in the video, that it was sitting on her desk, the file. We get to the second video, now she's trying to claim it's something else, trying to prey on the vulnerability of their base for not being bright, being LC. And if you're just getting here, LC means low critical thinking. For just fucking preying on it. That's what she just did. And then lastly, let's talk about Dan Bongino. And nobody in their right mind can talk about LeBron's receding hairline when you look at this fucking hairline. It looks like his hairline is so far back, it looked like the tie is around his head, ladies and gentlemen. He clearly clearly knew when he got involved with this that Trump was on it. He clearly knew it. He knew it. But what he was hoping, ladies and gentlemen, what him and his boss, cockeyed Kash, thought, they thought that they was going to get this list and it was going to be full of more Democrats than Republicans. That's what they thought. They thought it was going to be Bill Clinton, Obama, Sasha Malia, all kinds of people on this list that would incriminate Democrats. And they know good and damn well that this list incriminates probably both people.
Yes.
But
they're not willing to ever make their party look bad, even if it's exposing an international pedophile ring.
Not willing to do it.
No.
And most likely the list would expose more Republicans than it would Democrats, which is why most conspiracy beliefs are that Epstein was allowed to kill himself, because exposing that file would expose not just Democrats, but a shit ton of Republicans. And having said that, Claire, I give you the floor and I give you cockeyed Kash.
Oh, God. So one thing that this makes me think about is when you're accused of something bad, right? Mm-hmm. And you know wholeheartedly that you didn't do it. What are you logically going to do? You are going to give every bit of evidence that you have that proves your innocence. You're going to ask that they bring all of the evidence they already have to light. And it makes me think about when my ex-boyfriend was doing sketchy shit on his phone, and I asked him to simply let me look through his phone, and he flipped out, making a fuss about it, how it was an invasion of his privacy and telling me to get over it. And why are we still talking about this? Why are we still talking about this? Of course, had he been innocent, which he wasn't, he would have said, please go through it. I can't stand the idea of you thinking I'm a worse person than I am. If this is the way for me to prove my innocence, then I will forfeit my privacy to put your mind at ease. Mm-hmm. But that's not what's happening here. The opposite. So I just don't understand that if Trump wants us to believe that he is not associated with this list in any way, shape, or form, the first thing that he wants to do is show people that damn list. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, MAGAs, they know this too. Trump is selfish. And that's why they like him, because he's not really thinking about other people. He's thinking about himself. Mm-hmm. And they think that that's badass, or however they want to put it.
Right.
Well, what that means is he's also probably not protecting anyone, because that could be other backup, like, oh, so you're not in it, but one of your good friends is. That doesn't make it any better, because you're still covering up and protecting pedophiles. But B, it's not likely that he would do that anyway. I don't think that he would, hide something because his buddy that's another billionaire or someone in his cabinet or someone else is implicated, which makes it look more and more and more and more like his name in particular is on that list.
Mm-hmm. And for those that don't understand what Claire is talking about, because this is a show that believes in receipts, let me pull up some receipts and I'll read it out loud to you. Claire, here's Exhibit A from the ClaireMont Show. Okay, Exhibit A from the ClaireMont Show. Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, a timeline of association. Now, of course, being that just because you're associated with being around someone does not make you a criminal. What makes you a criminal is the preponderance of evidence that supports you was engaged in the behavior. So let me read this. 87 through 90. I was 7 years old and then 10. Trump and Epstein were both wealthy figures in New York and Palm Beach socialites. Trump hosted a private party at Mar-a-Lago, with Epstein and several women. Footage from this event resurfaced in 2019. Trump once said in a 1992 interview, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. I wonder what kind of fun that was. I guarantee you it wasn't playing Monopoly. No. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. That's a quote from Trump, MAGA. Ugh. Then we go on. Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago. Epstein owned a mansion in Palm Beach, close to Trump's Mar-a-Lago. Epstein frequently attended parties at Mar-a-Lago in the 90s and the early 2000s. Virginia Guffrey, a key Epstein accuser, says she recruited while working at a spa attendant at Mar Hudo. Fallout. Trump and Epstein reportedly had a falling out around 2004 over a real estate dispute. Claire, doesn't that sound so much like Trump?
Of course. Not the moral stuff, not because he ended up on a yacht with Epstein and realized he was trafficking girls. No, it was because of some petty political, not even political, real estate, of course. Of course.
Yeah, it was the money. It was the money. All right. So Epstein's Black Book and flight logs. Trump's name appears in Epstein's infamous Black Book of Contacts, though less frequently than others.
Whatever
there
that
are
means.
no verified flight logs showing Trump aboard Epstein's private jet, the Loeta Express, unlike Bill Clinton or Prince Andrew, for example, who were shown to be on the private jet. All right. After Epstein died by apparent suicide in jail, Trump retweeted conspiracy theories implying Epstein may have been murdered, notably pushing the Clinton connection. Of course, he would push that. And of course, something like that would happen when most likely a bunch of people who are Republicans and Democrats probably wanted his ass dead because they knew that they both would be on one of the very few things most people agree on is horrible: pedophilia. Teaching points.
Right.
Power and access. This is something Claire just talked about when it comes to psychos and pedos. She just got finished giving y'all her LSTAT dissertation. Power and access. Trump's relationship with Epstein highlights how wealthy, powerful individuals often travel in the same circles, sometimes, and I would say most of the time, overlooking bad behavior. Media literacy. Trump's efforts to rewrite or downplay the relationship show how narratives can be manipulated once the public is watching. Last but not least, accountability. The lack of legal counsel for many of Epstein's circles shows how justice system often fails victims of people who have power and predators. Claire, floor is yours. Are we ever gonna see these files and hold these people accountable for the thousands of women and some men I've heard that they took advantage of while being underage?
That I have no idea of. Honestly, it is so. I mean, if either party were trying to cover it up, that at that point is just a miss. It's a disrespect to every single American, and then it's also such a disrespect to all of the victims. That there are these people that are known, that we have evidence of being the worst kind of person that pretty much any of us can imagine. Preying on the truly most vulnerable people and putting them through things that they will never be able to psychologically recover from fully. And yet we have all the ability to put these people to justice, and everybody's sitting on their hands. And I mean, I don't know how it would look if the Democrats were in power and we were demanding it, but I know that the Republicans, if they're going to be implicated, they're probably going to try to avoid having it spoken about at all, which is messed up. So what I'm thinking about this is, first of all, I want to talk about Pam really quickly.
Oh,
So
yes.
everyone's
please.
coming after Pam. I don't love the woman. All right. But what I will say, I think it's so ridiculous how they're forgetting that she serves Trump. When conservatives criticize Pam, but give Trump a pass, it's like yelling at the waiter for bringing you a burnt steak while the chef who cooked it is watching from the kitchen unbothered. Pam Bondi works for Trump. Her job is to carry out his agenda. He was next to her at that table when the press was asking her about saying that she had the files on her desk. And 2 seconds after she made her statement defending her claim, Trump said, why are we still talking about this? But yet the MAGAs are so willing to say, get Bondi out of office, fire her, get someone better. Fuck this woman. She doesn't represent us. She's a liar. But they're forgetting who is her boss. If he wanted those files out there, he could have said, hey, Pam, do that shit or you're fired. Or he could fire her and find someone else who can do it, or he could do it himself. So I think it's funny how even in the face of such damning evidence, some Trumpers are still focusing to put their rage and all of their efforts into fighting someone who follows Trump, who's replaceable, because they know that they've committed way too much of their time, their life, their mind to this man. And so he's not replaceable to them. If he's gone, the MAGA movement's gone. Everything that they've worked hard for, all of the horrible rumors they've spread and all the horrible things that they've done has been for nothing if he is implicated. So it's just about finding another scapegoat so that he can remain untainted in their image of him. And it's just kind of funny watching them all realize that he was never one of them. He was always one of the swamp dwellers that they put him in office to kill and get rid of. And just because he talks like an uneducated redneck and uses bigoted, petty language doesn't mean that he's one of you. This Epstein situation is revealing something that people on the left have known all along, that he represents the worst of the swamp. He has had the power and influence to do awful things with impunity since he was born. And then you factor in the fact that he is a crook and a liar, and that his moral compass is permanently pointing south. Of course, he belongs to a club that nearly every American hates, no matter their party affiliation, which is people with lots of money, lots of power, who hide the truth and who hurt the innocent. No matter where you belong in the political moral spectrum, that is it's like in prison. Who goes first? Who are the murderers and the worst people in there going to go and kill first? The pedophiles. Because even if you have a slippery slope in terms of your own morality, that one for most people is unacceptable. And that's why this is one of the things that could be truly the nail in the coffin of the MAGA movement, because he has pushed himself into a corner. And either way, he's either going to be seen as protecting pedophiles or being a pedophile. And his movement, who has made their platform about protecting innocent unborn babies and about, restoring American ideals and protecting everyone from the bad people out there. And they're realizing that one of the worst kinds of people that they can imagine is actually their dear, dear leader, or could be, or is protecting those people. So Pizzagate was really about the Republicans all along, or at least both parties. Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Sadly, Claire, I do think Trump could weasel out of this by pulling the religious card, because the Republicans have done a great job of something the Democrats have done a bad job of stopping, which is allowing religion to infiltrate not only government facilities and government policy, but also infiltrate public schools. And so when you get people to believe in that type of magic, it makes them susceptible to a man, because the book of God basically says a man is the leader, which also causes a divide in belief of woman. And I'm not supporting Pam Bondi either, but I get what Claire's saying. She's only doing what the man who's head of the table is telling her to do. And he's not catching any strays.
Right.
And even with that, these people have such cognitive dissonance that they can disconnect Trump from this overall situation. And even if his name came on it, they probably would say it's a lie. It's a conspiracy. It's the deep state, because they have such a dissonance for him, and they've been ingratiated to him for so long that some of them are triple Trumpers and to this day still believe in Trump. And Claire, I got an example of one who has that cognitive dissonance and is waffling and flip-flopping right here. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Kirk. And we'll talk about him after you hear what he's been saying.
MAGA commentator Charlie Kirk now says he's no longer talking about Epstein, and this comes directly after Donald Trump gave him a phone call over the weekend. Take a look.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, ball's in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine.
As I mentioned, Donald Trump called Attorney General Pam Bondi's most vocal critics over the weekend in an effort to get them to stop talking about her, and that included Charlie Kirk. And now he says, well, I'm not talking about it anymore. I've said everything I need to say. Charlie Kirk talked about this story for years, but as soon as Donald Trump gives him a phone call and asks him, hey, don't do that, he listens like an obedient dog. Good boy, Charlie. You're doing the master's bidding. I hope the MAGA followers of Charlie Kirk understand that he and other people like him will throw you under the bus if Donald Trump requests that they do so. Just keep that in mind when you follow them, support them, and watch their terrible stuff.
Sheep, 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 sheep.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Hermie Kirk, and if you don't know who Hermie is, let me show you. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Charlie Hermie Kirk, ladies and gentlemen, has done exactly what me and Claire just got finished talking about. The only difference between him and the average MAGA is that Charlie Kirk is collecting a check from Trump and the top donors in MAGA. So he has a vested interest in shutting the hell up and moving on. And for all we know, he could be on this Epstein list too. Sure could. Mr. My wife needs to be self-servant to the husband. Mr. Great American Values. Let your people find out that one of y'all's folks in power in the MAGA movement, Great American Value, is taking advantage of people and underage people when you can for your deeds. I always compared this to MAGA when I would talk to him, Claire. I would always say, you know, Trump has been convicted of sexual abuse or assault.
Yeah, right. He has convicted, not accused, convicted.
And I would say, you voted for him. They were like, yeah, because that was a conspiracy. So guess what I would then say, Claire? I would say, would you vote for P. Diddy, who's accused of some of the same things but hasn't been convicted of anything? Well, now, I would say, what's the well now? Diddy is an accomplished mogul for music. He's a billionaire before Trump and really was a billionaire during Trump until Trump started using the office of the White House to enrich himself and grift. And he knows business. Why would you not vote for somebody like Diddy when you guys claim it's about the economy, stupid? Well, it looks like he really did it. He's on tape. I said, well, Trump is on tape saying a whole lot of shit, from grab him by the pussy, which implies you touch him whether they want you to touch him or not. Well, that was locker room talk. Okay, so Diddy on tape, was that not locker room banter too? Can you just say that was him just playing around in the halls of a hotel halfway naked? That's just locker room. That's just locker room. No, well, stop the fucking lying. You know good and damn well Trump got something to do with this. It's just that he's your guy. And you think that he's saying the things you want him to say to make you feel good, and you feeling good by him being someone who hates minorities, someone who steps on women, makes you feel good in your life because of your insecurities, and you would vote for that over anything else, even pedophilia in your heart. Floor is yours, Claire. You get the last word.
Yeah, I just think if they choose to make this about religion or however they want to weasel their way out of this, two things are going to be true. One, Trump was endorsed not once, not twice, I believe 3 times by the KKK.
Yeah.
So y'all voted for someone who y'all voted on the same side as the Ku Klux Klan. All right. So that one thing is true. Second thing, if y'all double down and y'all continue to support him after this fiasco, no matter how it goes, whether he doesn't release it, whether he does release it, whatever, he has made this situation look very bad. And he has been historically associated with man. So the second thing that would become true is you have forgiven a pedophile because you think he's good with money, or you think that he stands up to the people that you hate the most. So that tells me, A, even if you're not a racist, you're okay with being associated with racists. And B, even if you're not a pedophile, and even if Trump's not a pedophile, you still are supporting people who cover up and make excuses for people who are fucking pedophiles, and the worst kinds. I know all pedophiles are bad, but the kinds that traffic people. That's crazy. That's taking it to a whole other level, making it a systemic thing, making it something that there's a structure within, and then you can hire other people to get involved. That's scary. So yeah, I just hope that MAGAs realize their statements and how they respond to this exact situation is going to reveal so much of where they stand morally. And I will never let them forget it. Either way, if they defend him, if they find an excuse like religion to get him out of this situation, I will never, ever let them forget that they let a pedophile go scot-free, and they let a bunch of other people who would have been implicated because they are also pedophiles go scot-free because you were so obsessed with being right and supporting your man, no matter what he is or does. Shameful.
Well said. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, please share us with your friends. Download both podcasts, the ClaireMont Show, Politics of Being Black. You can follow all that and get our newsletter from beacons.ai/politics of being black. Claire, are we coming back Thursday?
We're going to have to talk about that after this.
Okay.
We'll see.
We'll let you know. We've got a lot of things going on as we continue to try to pump out the good content to help you guys navigate this crazy political times.
Yes.
Until our next Sexy as Hell video, and we are sexy, whether y'all believe it or not. We're out.
Somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body.